is a condiment that complements just about anything, from meats to veggies, pastas to grains. And something that works that hard has to be considered as a pantry staple, which is why I need you to stop buying the store stuff, which contains way too much salt, sugar, and sometimes not enough tomatoes. This recipe is shelf-stable, simple, and shares the truth about why I and maybe you should stop using garden fresh tomatoes to make and can salsa, and why it's a way better project to do during the winter than the summer. Yep, I said it, I said it. Honey, you don't even need to have a canner or know how to can for this recipe. After you have jars of this on your shelf, you will never consider this a basic dip. And to prove it, let me show you how you use your jars of salsa at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then we'll get to making the easiest and most delicious salsa anyone has time to make. If you found yourself in a breakfast rut, a jar of salsa is exactly what you need.
When you cut tortillas down to size to line a muffin tin, you're one step closer to making cheesy salsa burrito muffins. This recipe is great because it doesn't use a ton of ingredients, and your taste buds will be delighted with the amount of flavor just a bit of salsa provides. The great thing about salsa muffins is that they're easily customizable. You can throw in different cheeses at the breakfast meat of your choice. I promise you really can't go wrong. These salsa cups pack a healthy protein punch, savory cheese, and a serving of veggies to fuel you or your family through the morning. Next up is a sausage and salsa hash brown casserole, a dish that's perfect for the weekends. On top of a layer of hash browns or diced potatoes, you'll add some taco seasoning and then gently brown some onions and sausage in a skillet or use a jar of your home can. Mix eggs and cheese in a separate dish, then pour over the crumbled sausage. Layer a jar of salsa over your hash browns and then spread the sausage egg mixture on top and bake in the oven. Y'all, this recipe has so much infused flavor. And better yet, you didn't have to spend the morning chopping ingredients. When you bring this dish to the table, everyone will come back for seconds, so just make sure you have enough salsa on hand.
Now, for those of us that are long-term SuttonsDaze fans, you know that I cannot share another recipe without including a few jars of what Lisa popularized here on YouTube as ugly chicken. Here are some lunch ideas that are gonna become your favorite.
In a pan, combine a brick of cream cheese and a jar of your homemade salsa until things melt. Then add canned chicken on top, cheese, and bake for 15 minutes. Salsa chicken dip is one of the easiest appetizers. You can make at home or bring to work or family gatherings. And as you saw, everything is assembled and served in one dish. Pair this dip with some nachos and plunk down on the table for a hearty snack everyone will love. Next up is chicken spaghetti, a meal that's just as much a regular in our home as ground beef spaghetti. Start by sauteing some garlic, onion, and bell pepper in a skillet. Then add flour, Italian seasoning, and a bit of chicken broth, and then give things a good mix. Next, you'll add Parmesan and cheddar cheese and season with salt and pepper. Let's really oomph up the flavor by adding our salsa, then pour in milk to thin out our sauce. Finally, add your home canned chicken. This meal freezes beautifully, which is why I'm portioning off most of it to use as a weekday meal later this month, and I encourage you to do the same when you make this dish. Darling, when it's time to ladle this hearty sauce over your noodles that looks and tastes like something that took hours to make, you and the folks you're serving will be impressed. This is so good.
Here are some go-to dinners in my home that you're sure to enjoy too.
This next meal is my version of a chilaquile, which is a dish that simmers salsa and corn tortillas together, and then it's topped with pulled chicken, but here I use home canned chicken breast, and you can garnish with just about anything. I like to use a combination of cheeses and homemade fermented sour cream. Sometimes I'll add beans on top. Each slice is savory, crunchy, and filled with those zesty Tex-Mex flavors we love. It only needs to be popped in the oven for 5 to 7 minutes, making this a 10-minute meal I really enjoy when I need a super fast option. Right now, I'm out of home canned taco soup, y'all, but with the jar of salsa, I can use the ingredients I already have on my shelf by combining chicken, salsa, corn, and beans in a pan and simmering for 10 to 15 minutes. A quick dinner on a cold day doesn't get any faster or easier than this. I love dehydrating my own scalloped potatoes because compared to the size and amount you get when you make them yourself, store-bought is expensive and reduced quality. I like to jazz up the flavor by adding a jar of salsa, then add milk and dehydrated cheeses that I get from the Amish market. One is a cheddar cheese and the other is sour cream. You'll bake this for 30 minutes or so, and what comes out are tender potatoes that taste just like cheesy pizza. You've gotta try it. Next up, we have a salsa manicotti bake. It's a flavored twist to a classic dish you'll reach for over and over again. After you fill your shells with a ricotta, cilantro, green onion combo, layer a baking dish with salsa and top your stuffed noodles with pepper jack cheese. Who says you can't enjoy delicious meals even on a weeknight?
See? I told you salsa was a pantry staple. And if you're looking for more canning recipes to add to your pantry, you're in luck because this video is part of a collab brought to you by a dear friend that helped start me on my canning journey. Lisa from SuttonsDaze has hundreds of canning recipes and has corralled canners you likely already know and others that you've got to meet during the month of January, or as we call it, Canuary. So click on the link below to find the playlist and an amazing list of prizes and resources you can win. If this is our first time meeting, hi, I'm Cassandra from the blog becomingafarmgirl.com. I'm here to help you start canning and preserving your own ingredients right at home and share ways to use your home can pantry and meals your family will love. Click on the link below to find the posting schedule and an amazing list of prizes and resources you can win.
This recipe starts off with an optional step, but one that has a big flavor payoff. The day before I make salsa, I like to cut up the onions I'll need, season with a bit of pepper, and then roast them low and slow for 20 to 25 minutes to bring out that unbeatable caramelized onion flavor. Now, while it's true that onions store for longer out of the fridge in a cool, ventilated space, you'll actually want to pop them in the fridge or freezer for about 30 minutes. The blast of cold prevents the tear-causing enzymes from releasing into the air. Just be sure to work quickly so your onions don't warm up. Hands down, the best way to make a year's supply or at least a large batch of salsa all at once is to use a roaster. While many people use their roaster ovens just at holiday time for turkey and other meat, it's intended for so much more like soups, baking cakes, roasting ribs, and steaming vegetables to name a few. In a moment, we'll get to the recipe tips and notes portion of the video, which is where I'll share the advantages to using canned tomatoes over fresh. But for now, I'll state the obvious. It's faster, because the work of cleaning and dicing tomatoes is already done for you. For those of us with no or limited land or aren't yet able to grow all of our tomato needs, sourcing from the grocery store is still an easy and economical way to make your own homemade recipes for your pantry. Often I'll add herbs that I've dehydrated or have grown out back to season things up. My recipes infuse custom touches like caramelizing onions or adding salt blends that I've created to give things that homemade stamp. You'll have the option to select plain diced tomatoes like this, or seasoned ones that come with an Italian blend that uses basil and oregano like this. Let your taste be your guide. I also had a few cans of whole peeled tomatoes, which work perfectly fine in this recipe too. You can use a knife to give them a rough chop, but clean hands work just as good. All right, let's grab everything from the fridge, our onions that we made yesterday, and I had a bag of chopped and frozen peppers from this summer that I defrosted. The exact measurements for this recipe can be found on my blog, but here's what I love about this recipe. It's flavorful, but it doesn't lean too strongly in one direction, making it the perfect spaghetti sauce or soup backup. Other ingredients you'll add include jalapenos, garlic, and acidifying agents like vinegar, lime juice, a quality unrefined sea salt, a bit of sugar, which does not make this recipe sweet at all, and then tomato paste to thicken things up and give your salsa body. Finally, we'll add some seasonings, give everything a good stir, and let simmer for several hours.
Alright, so while our salsa is simmering, I wanted to jump in and share some of my recipe tips. And then I'll show you how to jar things up for the water bath. And I'm just gonna look down at my recipe notes. So this recipe uses lime instead of lemon juice, which you'll see in a lot of recipes. And that's because lime supports salsa's authentic flavor. And this has been verified as a safe alternative, as both are sources of citric acid. But if you're gonna use lemon or lime, be sure to use the bottled version of either to ensure standardized acidity between 2 and 2.3. And that's because fresh lemons and limes can vary in acidity, and you know what you're getting when you're using the bottle. And by acidifying the tomatoes with the vinegar and a lemon or lime combo, you can safely can this salsa recipe in a water bath canner. But because vinegar and lime juice do not have the same pH or acidity level, they are not interchangeable in equal amounts in this recipe. So salsa is pretty flexible in terms of what size jar it likes to live in, but I tend to stick with the pint-sized jars because that's what you see with store-bought, which makes it really easy to interchange in recipes that I might be trying. In case you forgot, February is National Canned Food Month, which is when grocery stores feature their best and lowest prices on nearly every canned item in the store. And it's the reason that I wait to make salsa during the winter and not the summer. And honey, look, unless you are making a caprese salad or BLT, canned tomatoes are better than fresh. Let me say the rest before you get the wrong idea. I'm talking about cooking tomatoes. I would never serve canned tomatoes in a salad. The first reason is that canned tomatoes always have a bit of salt added, which amplifies that tomato flavor. And you consistently get that tomato flavor because canned tomatoes are canned at the height of tomato season. Canned tomatoes are also peeled, so there's no curly spears poking out of your salsa. Y'all know I suffer from OCD, obsessive canning delight. And I can all year round, but during the summer months when the produce is coming in hard and fast, I can only really juggle a maximum of 3 projects when I'm doing the bulk of my canning on the weekend. Now yes, I love my vintage Vittoriano tomato strainer. And my homemade tomato sauce is definitely the pride of my pantry. But I have not scaled enough to meet the demands of all of our tomato-based product needs. And that's okay. There are only about 3 to 4 categories of canned goods I still purchase from the store, and I count that as a win. Baby doll, if you haven't already, get yourself a roaster. I thrifted mine for 20 bucks. Now I have a humble townhouse kitchen, but having this roaster for the past 6 months allows me to process large amounts of food without crowding my stovetop. And I can move it to the dining room if I need to utilize my limited countertop space, and it doubles as an oven for me to cook any type of meat. It's great for soups and potlucks. Now there are a few things to consider when you reach for store-bought tomatoes. And you can totally use whole peeled tomatoes or diced tomatoes, but there are huge differences between the two. Diced canned tomatoes are good if you're looking to make a slow-cooked dish, but you still want distinct tomato pieces. So you know, things like chili, stew, or salsa. But here's the thing. Chopped tomatoes have the preservative calcium chloride, which helps them keep their shape so that they don't break down as quickly during the cooking and storing process. And calcium chloride is a common food additive that is used to keep fruits and vegetables firm. So in the case of diced tomatoes, this means that adding calcium chloride helps the tomatoes to retain their bite and shape even after they're cooked. But you can avoid this by buying organic diced tomatoes that don't have calcium chloride listed as an ingredient. But if you get whole tomatoes that are peeled or crushed tomatoes, either organic or conventional, they do not use calcium chloride, which is why they're more ideal for your sauces and your soups and your baked pastas, where the tomatoes can really melt away. So use what makes you feel comfortable. I've used both, and once you get the seasonings down, no one is looking at the individual tomatoes. All right, so now let's talk about the peppers that you use. If you want to dial up the heat, don't remove the seeds and the veins from whatever peppers you use. Now I like to stick with jalapeno because it's a mild heat, but if you like it spicy, you can use habanero or Scotch bonnet peppers. Properly canned and sealed salsa will last for 18 months in a cool, dark spot. And even after that time, it's safe to eat, but you might notice a slight degradation in color, texture, and the vibrancy of taste. As long as you have a secure seal, it's perfectly safe to eat. These are all the recipe tips I have for now. Be sure to check out the coordinating blog post for more and updated information. Now let's get back to our salsa.
Take a tall stock pot and place a canning jar rack on the bottom. Add enough water to cover at least 1 inch above your jars. You can underestimate things right now and add more water later. Turn the heat to bring the water to a boil, but as that's happening, let's go back to our stove and add the last ingredient, cilantro. Next, you'll ladle hot salsa into clean pint-sized jars, leaving 1 inch of headspace. Then you'll need to remove the air bubbles using a debubbler, removing salsa if you need to maintain the headspace. Clean the rims of your jars with distilled vinegar or water to remove any spilled residue that may prevent your jars from securing a seal. Then apply new lids fastened with jar bands just until things are fingertip tight, secured but air still has room to pass through. 4Jars canning lids are excellent quality and the ones I use because they have the thickest metal lids out there on the market and use food grade silicone to prevent leaks. Use my code FARMGIRL10 to get 10% off your order. Using a jar lifter, lower the jars into the boiling water of your water bath canner. Pour in more water to ensure that the water covers at least 1 inch above your jars, and then place the lid on your pot. Bring the water to a full boil for 15 minutes for pint-sized jars or 20 minutes for quarts. Then use a jar lifter to remove the jars out of the water and let them cool on a towel undisturbed for a minimum of 8 hours. To check the seals, tap on the lid of the jar several times. A properly sealed jar will not flex up or down when pressed. Label your jars, then record your quantities in your canning journal to keep track of your inventory, meal ideas, and more. I'll include a link below where you can grab your reusable and downloadable journal, which features a photographed canning guide for hot water and pressure canning, reference sheets, and pantry categories, including my popular tracking system to help you know what you will do, won't do, and want to try as you come across delicious recipes. Don't forget to click the link to start getting canning recipes delivered straight to your inbox. I'll see you in my kitchen or garden soon. Take care, friends.